Hola a todos, ¿cómo están? Yo soy señor Eduardo. ¿Cómo estás? How are you? ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo te llamas? Mi nombre es señor Eduardo. ¿Cómo te llamas? Mi nombre es... Muy bien. ¿Puedes hablar español? ¿Tú hablas español? Yo hablo español. Yo hablo español. ¿Tú hablas español? Muy bien. ¿Puedes repetir los números? Los números. Repita, por favor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 es 20. Muy bien. ¿Puedes decir el alfabeto? El alfabeto. Muy bien. Repita, por favor. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, Ñ, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y y Z. Muy bien. ¿Puedes decir los pronombres personales? Pronombres personales. Por ejemplo, I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they. Pronombres personales. Muy bien. Yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, nosotras, vosotros, vosotras, ellos, ellas y ustedes. Ok, muy bien, fantástico. Y ahora, ¿tú recuerdas las terminaciones de infinitivos? Hay 3 grupos infinitivos. Muy bien. Todos los verbos en la forma infinitivo terminan en AR, ER, en IR. AR, ER, IR. Muy bien. ¿Y tú recuerdas las terminaciones con verbos con AR, AR en el presente? Muy bien. O, as, a, amos, ais, an. O, as, a, amos, ais, an. Muy bien. Okay, everybody. Wow. I hope I did not scare you. Welcome to this week's episode of Spanish by Rola Languages. We're a language institute located in Cambridge, and we're super excited to be doing this collaboration with Big in Brookline Interactive Group. So super excited. I just took you through 3.5 minutes of only Spanish. I'm going to try to speak more Spanish. If you're tuning in for the first time, what I want you to do is repeat after me. Everything I tell you, you don't have to memorize it. Just repeat, make the sounds, make the words, and just repeat. Okay, so as we learn a new language, the first level is what we're doing right now. A lot of it is just memorization, but it's also being comfortable making these sounds, okay? These different sounds, moving your mouth in different ways, okay? So just repeat after me. So what we did last week, if you tuned in, we had the numbers, we learned the numbers, and then we learned verbs. So we're actually going to review the numbers one more time. I said it in the intro, but I want you to see it. Then we're going to review the present tense AR verbs. So that's those endings I just showed you. And then we're going to move on to some new vocabulario. Okay, so here we go. Repita, por favor. You guys can follow along. Cero, uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis, siete, ocho, nueve, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Okay, now let's do it backwards. You try to read first. I'm going to sit here quietly. Go. Ok, muy bien. 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. Very good. Okay, so when we started conjugating verbs, and the two verbs that you learned initially were ser and estar, which mean to be. Now we've given you a list of AR verbs in the form of the rapid response. And what we wanted you to do is to practice conjugating them, right? So you're taking the personal pronoun, yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, nosotras, vosotros, vosotras, and ellos, ellas, ustedes. You're taking those. You're adding these endings. You're pairing them up together, okay? And that is a conjugated verb. It's saying, I run, he runs. I speak, we speak, she speaks, right? That's all in the present tense. We're learning the present tense right now, only with AR verbs. So I'm going to take you through a few from the rapid response. There's a section here in your book that we will review here. Let's see. Okay, so if you look at the bottom section, actually, no, let's look up here. Let's look at this estudiar, right? So we're having these endings. We have, if you see here, look at my banner below. You have o, as, a, ambos, ais, an. Repeat after me. Yo estudio, tú estudias, él, ella, usted estudia, nosotros, nosotras estudiamos, vosotros, vosotras estudiáis, and ellos, ellas, ustedes estudian, right? So you're just taking estudiar, which is the infinitivo, you're dropping the AR, and you're adding the endings that you see in my banner below. Let's do that one more time with travel and viajar. So you have, you drop off the AR, so you have viaj, V-I-A-J, then you're adding the endings that are in the banner. So, yo viajo, tú viajas, él, ella, usted viaja, nosotros, nosotras viajamos, vosotros, vosotras viajáis, and ellos, ellas, ustedes viajan. Very good. Now let's go over here. There's a list right over here. And you guys, one of the most important things that I tell all of my students is I want you all to make sure you include the personal pronoun. Now, if you're working with another teacher, they might say, don't worry about it. If you know the endings naturally have a subject, and they do, right? Because they pair up. Yo goes with o, tú with as, él, ella, usted with a, etc. They pair up together. But as you guys are trying to think in your head and conjugate them, what I want you to do is I want you to make sure every single time you conjugate a verb, you say yo hablo, tú hablas, él, ella, usted habla, nosotros, nosotras hablamos, vosotros, vosotras habláis, and ellos, ellas, ustedes hablan. You're going to say it all together. You're going to not only say it when you're practicing the conjugation, but you're going to write it as well and include the personal pronouns. The reason for that is that we have some mechanics here. Our mouth, our tongue, and our lips are moving and making different sounds. number one. And so we're working on the mechanics. But number two, when you're speaking and you're trying to figure out which is the conjugation for a verb, chances are you might have a trigger when you say yo hablo, because you know that yo goes with hablo or hablo goes with yo, and it might be able to help you conjugate, make that connection in this neural pathway in your brain, make it easier. Okay, and so that way it's less confusing because you've already memorized what comes after the yo, which is hablo in this case for the verb hablar. Okay, so if you look here in the corner here, okay, so I'm going to conjugate all of those very quickly. I don't want this to scare you, okay, because you're going to pause, you're going to write them down, and you're going to use these charts to help you conjugate them. But this is what I want you to do. Yo trabajo, tú trabajas, él trabaja, nosotros trabajamos, vosotros trabajáis, ellos trabajan. Yo ayudo, tú ayudas, él, ella, usted ayuda, nosotros, nosotras ayudamos, vosotros, vosotras ayudáis, en ellos, ellas, ustedes ayudan. Llevar, yo llevo, tú llevas, él, ella, usted lleva, nosotros, nosotras llevamos, vosotros, vosotras lleváis, en ellos, ellas, ustedes llevan. Preguntar, yo pregunto, tú preguntas, él, ella, usted pregunta, nosotros, nosotras preguntamos, vosotros, vosotras preguntáis, en ellos, ellas, ustedes preguntan. Okay, so that might sound tricky and hard for some of you, okay, but don't worry. You can go visit us at rolalang.com. Go to our YouTube page where we also have our own content in the present tense AR. You might be able to find some, or you will find some videos as well. And then the other thing is practice writing them out, okay? And then saying them, read them out loud, practice and memorize. There's a lot of stuff, and this is the foundation of being able to make sentences and conversation, right? Muy bien. Bueno, fantástico. So today, hoy, vamos a continuar. Continuar. As you all know, we're using the Rola Languages Spanish Level 1 book. I'm holding it up here. Okay. You guys can purchase it online or on Amazon, or go visit us at www.rolalang.com. There is an answer key as well, and there's also Spanish level 2 and 3, and soon we'll have Spanish level 4 that you guys can continue learning the system that we have here at Rola Languages. Okay, fantastic. So here we go. Today, we're going to learn physical descriptions. And if you notice here, it says with ser. So let's go back real quick before we learn the words and memorize them. Remember that ser and estar mean to be. Ser is to be permanent, okay? But then we have a list of things. It's a permanent characteristics, it's relationships, it's professions. Those things are generally permanent because you may change careers, but you are always a teacher deep down inside. So relationships, friendships, that's all said. Estar is to be temporary. And those are temporary conditions or temporary emotions, okay? But we are telling you in this book that you will be using ser, which is used with all of these, okay? And these are physical descriptions. So what that means is, when back to ser, to be temporary or to be permanent, these generally are physical descriptions that don't change. Now, you might say, well, I'm a little hefty, I might gain some weight and lose some weight. Well, generally, we're saying you're generally a skinny person, or you're generally a fit person. Okay, so generally, right, that's that permanent. Or how would somebody describe you? Would they describe you as tall and or short or blonde or brunette, right? Those are generally, you can change your hair color, but generally these physical descriptions are permanent. They don't change unless you change them, right? Okay, so at the bottom here, this is the verb ser. Okay, so let's look at the banner very quickly. And remember, this is the verb we're using with this whole list of vocabulario. So repeat after me. Yo soy, tú eres, él, ella, usted es, nosotros, nosotras somos, vosotros, vosotras sois, and ellos, ellas, ustedes son. So this list here is I am, you are, she is, we are, they are, right? So I am tall, I am short, we are slim, he is fat, they are young, right? So all of these here, and we're going to come back to this in a second because I want to make sure for those of you who are newer to Spanish, or if you're following this whole series, make sure that you know this one very, very well. And it's not conjugated like the AR verbs, right? It's irregular, and that's why we give it to you there at the bottom and say, you know what, just memorize it like that. Okay, so I'm going to disappear for a second. So as always, step number 1 is learn how to pronounce these and memorize them. So here we go. Repeat after me. Alto, alto, alta, alta, bajo, bajo, baja, baja, delgado, delgado, and feminine, delgada, delgada, gordo, gordo, and feminine, gorda, gorda. Young is joven, joven. Then we have viejo and vieja. Remember, the J in Spanish is an H sound in English. Viejo and vieja. Fuerte, fuerte. Débil, débil. Guapo, guapo. Guapa, guapa. Feo, feo. Fea, fea. Grande, grande. Pequeño, pequeño. Pequeña, pequeña. Corto, corto. And corta, corta for short. Largo, largo. Larga, larga. Moreno, moreno. Morena, morena. And lastly, for blonde, rubio, rubio, and rubia, rubia. Okay, everybody. Wow. So hopefully you were just listening and repeating out loud. Now, sometimes that's hard for people because you're not seeing my mouth and you're not seeing what I'm doing, but that's okay. You can pause and rewind and do it again. Okay. Now, as always, your first order of business is simply memorizing them from English to Spanish and Spanish to English. Okay. Now, generally, it's harder from English to Spanish. You will probably, if you see it in Spanish, you'll probably be able to figure it out. Okay. So don't move on until you can do the translation. Okay. And the question that we've been learning since day one and practicing that you can use with your family or a partner is ¿cómo se dice? Right? So ¿cómo se dice tall? Tall in español. Se dice, right? Se dice alto, alto, or feminine, alta. ¿Cómo se dice strong? Strong in español. Se dice, right? We're just filling this out. Se dice fuerte, fuerte. Now, you may not be able to do that just yet because you just saw these words for the very first time. Okay, and that's okay. So use these words, hit the pause button, write them down, make flashcards, use Quizlet. Quizlet's a great online flashcard system that you can use for free. Okay. And then you guys can practice at home as much as possible. Okay, so let's go to the right side here. And I am going to give you some help. Okay, so what does that mean, Ed? Okay, so one of the things that we say here is that you might need to look up, we give you a list, right? That's what you see in yellow. I've given you a list. Now, in this system, I think I've said this before, it's important that you learn in context. And what that means is we don't give you all of the words here. You might have to look them up and then add them to your flashcard collection and add them to your repertoire of vocabulario, or vocabulary. So in the next exercise, we have words like hair and woman and man and baby and girl and boy and dogs and eyes and woman and hair and baby, blah, 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 right? So what I want you to do is I want you to look those up, hit the pause button, and then go to Google Translate, find the Spanish dictionary, and look them up, okay? Now, it's very important, and I'm going to say this here because this is probably one of the first times you're doing this. In Spanish, the noun, for example, hair or woman or men or man or baby, comes first. Then after that is the adjective that you just learned. Okay, so first comes the noun. Okay, so instead of it being tall girl, it is girl tall, la niña alta. Instead of tall boys, it is boys tall, niños altos. So long hair is going to be hair long, so pelo largo. Brunette woman is going to be woman brunette, so mujer morena. Blonde men, okay, is going to be hombres rubios, so men blonde. Then this one, young man, is going to be man young. Okay, so with this exercise here, you are looking up the nouns. We've given you the adjectives here, okay? Now then you're reversing them, right? Because in Spanish, the noun comes before the adjective 95% of the time, okay? So you're reversing them. And then you're doing something here, and we're going to, in the next episode, I'm going to give you the answers, explain them in a little bit more detail because I want you to memorize the vocabulary and then look up those words for me. But remember that in Spanish, adjectives go after the noun, I just said that, and have to agree in gender and number with the noun. So for example, girl is niña, that is feminine. Okay, so you need, and singular, there's no S, it's singular as well. So you need to have this one also feminine. So niña alta. In this one, niños is OS, so that's masculine and plural. So then altos has to be an O and an S as well. So you have tall boys are niños altos. Okay. Now, you might ask me, well, Señor Eduardo, lo siento, some of these don't have an A or an O or a feminine version. That's correct. So you don't have to change it if they don't have a feminine version here, but you will have to make it plural if the word there is plural. Okay, so that's a lot of information. Let's repeat the vocabulario, and then in the next episode, we're going to tackle this adjective business a little bit better, or more, I should say. So repeat after me. Alto, bajo, delgado, gordo, joven, viejo, fuerte, débil, guapo, feo, grande, pequeño, corto, largo, moreno, rubio. memorize that from English to Spanish and Spanish to English. Then you're going to come over here. You're going to find hair, woman, man and men, baby, dogs, eyes, okay? You're going to find those and translate them to Spanish, and then you're going to do this exercise here. And remember, the noun comes before the adjective, before the words in my yellow box there, okay? Muy bien. So as always, everybody, that was a lot, and we're starting to get into some more grammar, okay? And so as you guys continue learning Spanish, it's all this stuff that we're doing, especially in Intro 1 and 2, is very foundational. I've said that before. So take your time, hit the pause button, hit the rewind button, and don't forget to talk and repeat out loud and practice them. These things will never change, right? And so if you can memorize them and learn them very, very well, you'll be all set. Okay, pues, muchas gracias. Adiós.